and the tools that you can apply in your investing journey. So today I want to do something which I've not really laid out in one place before, which is how I invest in crypto and how I think about investing in crypto, because I think you'll find this useful too in your crypto investing journey. So where I've got to start with this is how I fucked it up. You see, I fucked it up many ways. Crypto is a complicated asset class. It's hugely volatile. It does the unexpected. Even though people think the cycles repeat normally, they don't. They're all different texture, context, and it's really easy to fuck it up. So let's do the honest approach, because I really fucked it up. You see,
Bitcoin just crashed to 72,728,000, its lowest level since mid-April, as U.S. military strikes on Iranian drone sites protecting Hormuz vessels triggered $930 million in liquidations, with 93% of them coming from long positions. Tomorrow is the largest options expiry of the year at $7.5 billion, with Bitcoin's max pain level sitting near $69,000. Morgan Stanley just launched a stablecoin reserves fund. Crypto payment cards reached $7.8 billion in cumulative volume, with monthly usage up 230% since May 2025. And Raoul Pal is making his most honest confession in years. He had $200,000 in Bitcoin in 2012 that could have been worth $100 million if he had done nothing. And instead, he traded it. And his prescription for every investor watching the $72,728 price today is the exact framework that would have prevented every mistake he made. Let's watch and discover.
That I thought I was doing right. And when I did the maths, I stuck in 200 grand when I first did it. That was a decent bet. I mean, really was a decent bet back in 2012. It would have been worth 100 million if I hadn't done anything. And that's the power of compounding, and also proof that I am a total idiot. I totally fucked it up because I did this. Even though I came back in more size and everything else, that original bet and all the other things, it would have been just better to buy and hold it. So those are the lessons I've learned. And I'm going to walk you through some of this and how I can help you with that journey. But firstly, to invest in anything, you need a framework of understanding. The framework that I've used and brought to everybody is the Everything Code. The Everything Code is that idea that your purchasing power, that keeps going down. On top, you'll average maybe another 3% inflation. Inflation is separate to debasement. Debasement is when the value of your currency or your savings goes down versus long-term assets. CPI is when it goes down versus the cost of goods and services. They're both different things, so you have to add them together. You'll get to an 11% hurdle rate, of which if your returns aren't beating that 11%, you're actually getting poorer every year. And this is the one thing that's making the rich richer, the poor poorer, is poor people weren't able to invest as easily. Now, crypto changed a lot of that because it's more fractionizable. It's also globally accessible. But that's where we are now. And this is all driven by the mega force of demographics. These charts, I think, are the most important charts in macro, and most people don't understand them. So this is the labor force participation rate and the births deaths rate going forwards, or the birth rate going forwards. What it tells you is demographics is destiny. It's baked in the cake. We tried to change this via immigration. It didn't work. So what we've got is a slowing of the population growth. In many countries in the world, we've got negative population growth. And we can see the size of the labor force shrinks because of it. Makes sense, right? Because older population.
This is the sharpest single-day Bitcoin move since the war began in February. Bitcoin crashed from $74,879 yesterday to $72,728 intraday, its lowest level since mid-April, as U.S. military forces struck Iranian drone launching sites near the Strait of Hormuz in what the Pentagon described as defensive operations protecting commercial vessels. Total liquidations in 24 hours, $930 million of that. 93% came from long positions, meaning leveraged bulls who had been positioned for a recovery got systematically wiped out as the Iran escalation triggered stop-loss cascades across every major exchange. The largest single liquidation, a $15.34 million Bitcoin long on Hyperliquid. Fear and greed index, extreme fear territory. Tomorrow is May 29th, the largest options expiry of 2026. $7.5 billion in crypto contracts settle simultaneously. Bitcoin's max pain level, the price at which the maximum number of options contracts expire worthless, sits near $69,000. Max pain does not guarantee Bitcoin will reach $69,000 by tomorrow's expiry, but it does create a specific gravitational pull toward that level as options market makers reduce their hedges in a process called delta hedging unwind. When market makers who sold put options at $69,000 no longer need to hedge those positions because time value decays, they systematically remove their long Bitcoin hedge, creating structured selling pressure into Friday morning.
Of your coins, of your tokens. This is like rule number one. Don't lose control. Don't FOMO. I know your friend is going to call you up and say, listen, you need to look at Fartcoin or whatever it may be. And, this is the best investment ever. And he's made, 10x his money and there's another 10x to make. And you start moving away from your core allocation into stupid shit. FOMOing too late doesn't work. This is a very crowd-driven asset class. The other thing is, your FOMO friends or your X feed will get you to buy stuff that is disproven yet as an asset class. And those are earlier stage tokens, more speculative things, whether they're meme coins or earlier stage protocols or something that's not quite working yet. That's okay to have some of it. Have a small bag, the 10% degen bag I mentioned. That's where you can experiment and learn and try more speculative things. But please hold 3 to 5 assets as your main holdings. And I'll come on to how I think about those 3 to 5 assets. You may differ on that, but you better have the proof of why you have it. Not a hunch, not what your friend said, not because the chart looks good. You need to have proof of network adoption. Self-custody. You want to make sure that you're using a device like a ledger or you have a multi-sig wallet so people can't access your crypto in a hack. Have good wallet hygiene. Do not connect your wallets. One of the lenses I'm using now is like, well, what you want to do is, let's say ETH. Let's say we turned off the switch to ETH. How much economic value gets destroyed? Well, that's every layer 2, 70% of the entire stablecoins market, all of DeFi, all of NFTs, and then it's the future ability, all the real world assets, and then it's the future ability for the finance system and others to build upon those rails. That's a lot more than the ETH value today. ETH is an incredibly important ecosystem. Solana becoming increasingly important. Use cases because of the speed and the cost is amazing. And Sui's the other one. The caveat, I'm on the Sui Foundation, so you'll assume I have a bias, but I've actually done a lot of work on this. And I think that the only layer ones that really matter at this stage, and provably so, are these 3, with Sui being the earlier, more speculative, more volatile component part. So why these 4? Well, Bitcoin we kind of know about. It's very straightforward. It's not programmable. It does its thing. It's the global store of value. The only competition it has is probably from Zcash, which is the private version of Bitcoin. That's it. There's 2 competitors. And over time, Zcash will get a percentage share, call it 10%, whatever it is, of Bitcoin's total value. But Bitcoin keeps going as a larger share of global savings because that's its denominator.
The FTX $5 billion payout that was supposed to arrive simultaneously with the options expiry is now arriving in a market that has dropped 12% from its pre-expiry positioning. The $5 billion in FTX creditor distributions going to crypto-native investors provides the demand counterweight, but the specific price at which demand overwhelms the max pain pull is the question that defines this weekend's Bitcoin price. 2 structural stories broke this week that tell the crypto bull and bear case simultaneously in the most precise terms available. The bull case first. Morgan Stanley, the Wall Street firm that was among the last of the major banks to embrace crypto, launched a stablecoin reserves fund aimed at issuers that need to hold cash against their stablecoin liabilities. This is the specific institutional infrastructure that makes the Clarity Act's stablecoin yield provisions commercially viable at scale. Morgan Stanley building the financial plumbing for stablecoin reserve management is not a headline event. It is the quiet construction of the infrastructure that supports the $350 billion stablecoin market growing to trillions. Crypto-linked payment cards reached $7.8 billion in cumulative transaction volume with monthly usage up 230% since May 2025, confirming that the stablecoin payment rails Raoul Pal describes as critical AI infrastructure are already processing mainstream consumer payments at growing scale.
Human experiences, human-to-human interaction, that's art, that's appreciation of nature and beauty and communities, what we do together as humans. I've always used the example is chess. Nobody has beaten a computer at chess for 35 years. Yet the chess industry is the largest it's ever been. Multi-billion-dollar industry. Why? Because humans like to see messy humans compete with each other. It's like we won't have robots in a soccer team. Reason being, we want to see humans be flawed. That's the joy of it all. That's the joy of life. And part of that is this transition that we're about to go through, where humans kind of change their role from not being the top of the apex of intelligence, but becoming the human layer, the messy compute that drives a lot of the intelligence layer that is AI. Because don't forget, we're just the feeding input into the AI. It learns from us. But our compute is particularly messy because we have experiences, we have feelings, we have all those complicated human things, and that's great. We should just do more of that. But this transition is going to be the largest, fastest transition of any technology in all of humanity, and the largest transition humanity will ever have to go through. AI is the last technology humans will ever discover. And it's the greatest technology we will ever discover. And that is...
The bear case, the U.S. Treasury will conduct operations between May 28th and June 5th that remove approximately $150 billion in liquidity from the system through T-bill and coupon settlements. Fund manager Michael Kramer specifically warned that this $150 billion liquidity drain, arriving simultaneously with the $7.5 billion options expiry and the Iran escalation, could send Bitcoin continuing lower. $150 billion is a mechanical event. When treasuries mature and are not rolled over at equal pace, cash exits the system into treasury redemptions. For Bitcoin, which Raoul Pal has demonstrated is 90% correlated with global liquidity at cycle time scales, a $150 billion liquidity removal creates direct downward price pressure. This is the specific intersection of macro mechanism, treasury operations, options mechanics, Max Payne, $69,000, and geopolitics, Iran escalation that creates the most concentrated downside pressure Bitcoin has faced since the war began. Raoul Pal opened his most recent personal framework video with the confession that most financial experts would never make publicly. He had $200,000 in Bitcoin in 2012. If he had done absolutely nothing, bought and held without any trading, it would be worth $100 million today. Instead, he traded it, missed gains, re-entered at higher prices, made all the classic mistakes, and the result was dramatically worse than doing nothing. His assessment of himself, total idiot. This confession is the most useful piece of Bitcoin wisdom available at today's $72,728 price, because the temptation to do something is at its highest exactly when Bitcoin is at its lowest. At $72,728, every instinct says, this looks like it could go lower. Maybe I should reduce. Maybe I should wait for the bottom. Raoul Pal's confession says, the people who thought exactly that in 2012, in 2015, in 2018, in 2022, and acted on it, systematically underperformed the people who did nothing. The person who sat with their Bitcoin through every previous crash, every false bottom, every leveraged liquidation cascade, every Iran war, every FOMC hawkish shock, that person has the $100 million. The active traders have something smaller. The lesson is not specific to 2012. It is the lesson of every Bitcoin cycle, including this one. The $72,728 price will look like the $2,000 2012 purchase price in 10 years. Raoul Pal knows this because he has the $100 million reference point to compare against. The 11% hurdle rate. Raoul Pal's framework says most people do not understand that they have two separate monetary headwinds eating their savings simultaneously. Debasement, the rate at which the value of their savings falls relative to long-term assets, runs at approximately 8% annually. CPI, the rate at which the cost of goods and services rises, runs at approximately 3% annually. Add them together, 11%. Anyone whose investments return less than 11% annually is getting poorer every year, even if the nominal number in their bank account is rising. Bitcoin's 40% annual return over 6 years is not just good. It is the only asset class that clears the 11% hurdle rate by the margin needed to actually build wealth rather than maintain the appearance of it. Raoul Pal published his most definitive asset selection framework this week, the specific set of 4 crypto assets he holds as core positions and the intellectual process that leads him to exclude everything else. The 4, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and SUI. His reasoning for each is precise and falsifiable, which is what distinguishes his framework from opinion. Bitcoin, the global store of value. Not programmable, does not need to be, that is the point. The only competition is Zcash, the privacy version of Bitcoin. Zcash will capture perhaps 10% of Bitcoin's total value over time as privacy becomes more valuable in a surveillance economy. Bitcoin keeps growing as the dominant share of global savings because its denominator is human experience, art, community, the messy, beautiful, irreplaceable human things that AI will never replicate. Ethereum, apply the switch-off valuation test. Turn off Ethereum. You destroy 70% of the entire stablecoin market. All of DeFi, all NFTs, all Layer 2s, all real-world asset infrastructure, and all future financial system build-out on those rails. The economic value destroyed is multiples of Ethereum's current market cap. ETH is undervalued by this measure. Solana, the speed and cost use case, is simply better than Ethereum for most on-chain activity. The performance gap is real and growing. SUI, the most speculative and most volatile of the 4, with Raoul Pal disclosing his SUI Foundation involvement as a potential conflict of interest to note. But he says the parallel transaction processing architecture is genuinely better suited for AI agent commerce than any other Layer 1, built for silicon speed in a way that prior blockchains were not.